my channel, you guys. My name is Grace Pascale and I'm a registered dietitian here with some other lovely ladies that I'd love to introduce. We have Nicole from NIKKI'S and we have Dahlia Marin from Married to Health. So we are here today to do the ultimate vegan protein bars taste test. We've gathered our top 12 protein bars and we're going to assess them not only based on taste but also on some nutrition criteria that we will go ahead and dive into soon. But before we jump into that, I want to make sure I give these ladies time to introduce themselves so you guys can go ahead and check out their channels and subscribe if you're not already. So take it away.
Okay, so hey guys, my name is Nicole, but I have a YouTube channel called NIKKI'S, and I really like to make recipes that are very doable and practical but also delicious, and so that's what I do.
And I'm Dahlia Marin. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I specialize in the gut for those who follow a plant-based, predominantly plant-based diet for adults and children. I'm gut obsessed and I love helping those dealing with IBS, SIBO, IBD, you name it in the gut. I want to support you to eat more plants.
So we got the dream team here today, as you can see, and we have our master palate, our master taste tester and recipe creator, and then we have another angle of dietitian that is even more of an expert on gut health than myself, the average RD. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in today, but before we get started, I wanted to share with you guys kind of what we're looking for in terms of criteria. Obviously, we want these bars to taste amazing, so we have a variety of flavors that we're gonna try out, but we also wanna make sure that each bar is nutritionally balanced. And so kind of the arbitrary criteria we've gone with there is we want to make sure each bar has around 10 grams of protein to give you some significant, satiety. And we also want to make sure that each bar has a decent amount of fiber. I'll have Dahlia touch more on that soon. And then we want to make sure there's minimal added sugar and minimal use of things like caloric-free sweeteners. And then of course we want to make sure each bar has a healthy fatty acid profile and minimal things like saturated and trans fatty acids. With all that said, we are going to have some fun today and we're excited to dive in and just taste everything.
With these bars, of course, I think everyone is always so predominantly focused on protein. And yes, protein is extremely satiating, as we know. I try to ensure when I'm looking at the nutrition facts of something that at least 20% of the carbs are coming from fiber. And the way that you figure that out is you take total carbs, divide it by total fiber. That number should be 5 or less. So if you get a 1, amazing. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. If you get, a 2 or 3, but if you're here and you're getting a 17, that's not very much fiber in that bar. So again, you're more likely to want to eat shortly after that. Your blood sugar is going to be off. Your gut's not going to be as happy with that bar. So we'll see how these add up with fiber.
Do you guys have one that you want to try first?
I'll have you introduce.
Okay, so this is the Think bar. Did this used to be called Think Thin?
I want to say it did.
I feel like this is one of those things that got canceled. Like it used to be Think Thin and now it's Thin. I don't know, but the branding looks very similar. And I know a bar used to exist that's Think Thin and now I never see it.
The exclamation point is just like whenever I see an exclamation point, I'm like, why are you yelling at me?
Think.
Okay, I'll think. Cheers.
It better be worth it.
Cheers, guys. Cheers. Texture's interesting. From a flavor perspective, I would say that it's very, the texture is like very kind of soft and a little bit cookie dough-like and a little bit doughy. It has, the peanut butter comes through, but it's not a super salty peanut butter. And it does have a little bit of a tiny kind of like artificial flavor at the end, but it's like gummy and soft and more peanut than chocolate, I would say.
So this bar does have stevia in it, and stevia, while it's one of the healthier caloric-free sweeteners, obviously you can grow it in your backyard if you so choose, but the versions that they use in processed foods like this do tend to be like bleached and deodorized and all kinds of anti-caking agents added, and so they've studied the more processed stevia, and there's some really interesting research coming out on the fact that going above a certain threshold might alter the gut microbiome and cause dysbiosis. And additionally, they also tend to exaggerate the blood sugar spike at the subsequent meal or snack following. So for example, if you were gonna have a cup of stevia leaf sweetened iced tea, you might think that you're saving, 15 grams of sugar or 200 calories or whatever, but at the subsequent meal, they actually show that you are more likely to eat more. And then even if you eat the same amount, your body will actually artificially exaggerate the insulin spike from that meal. There's actually no significant difference they're finding between the calorie intake of those that regularly consume calorie-free sweeteners as opposed to the real sugary stuff.
And that really goes to fact to speak to. Again, because an ingredient came naturally before, doesn't mean you're still consuming it in its more natural, less effective form.
I think a really helpful tool is the World Health Organization put out a little metric people can use for how much stevia is safe to consume, and it's 4 milligrams per kilogram or 1.8 milligrams per pound of body weight. So that's a little hack you can use, and whatever number you get there, that is what is safe in terms of stevia units per day to consume.
And what's interesting though, when you're eating it in this form, obviously stevia is not added on the label. So for something like this, that would be something possibly to inquire with the company on, or try to figure out how much stevia exactly is going into each bar.
It just goes to show how much simpler it is to really make your own food and like see how much of each thing you're putting in there.
For sure. So as convenient as bars are, there can be more to think about.
Yeah.
That took me a second.
I got my mom joke.
Okay, so with all that being said, what would you guys rate this both in terms of taste and nutrition?
I'd probably give this a 2 out of 10 because it does contain saturated fat. It contains 8 grams of sugar alcohols. It contains 5 grams of added sugar per bar, which is a teaspoon and a quarter. And the carb to fiber ratio is a 24. So there's not much fiber, again, in comparison to those carbs. So for myself, my gut patients, I probably wouldn't recommend this one.
And taste?
Taste, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
It tasted really good.
Okay. I would give this a 4 out of 10 nutritionally, and I think taste-wise, I would also give it an 8 out of 10. I like this one.
So I'm not gonna rate on nutrition because they're the experts. I'm learning along with you guys watching, but taste-wise, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I don't know what a 10 would be. I don't know if I've had a 10 protein bar. This is good. It's definitely better than most, but it's like, I feel like we can do a lot.
We'll find our 10.
We'll find our 10. So, all right, you want to do this one?
Sure. So we have the Nugo Slim. This is also chocolate peanut butter flavor.
Cheers. This one has a lot more texture right away.
I kind of like the girth of it.
I get it. Okay.
That was phallic. I like a heavy bar. Like I want it to fill up my stomach, and there is something about the heaviness of it that is satiating. Like, you know when you have like a Luna bar or like those bars we grew up with, like a little chewy bar, like a chocolate chip chewy bar, they weigh nothing. And I'm like, this is air. Yeah.
So this, it has the texture of like, if you can imagine it's almost like a Rice Krispies treats if there were little bits of nuts all throughout it, and it has a very thin dark chocolate coating.
Dahlia, give us the expert review on the nutrition.
So, as I'm examining this, I would say from a gut perspective, I would probably give this a 6 out of 10, 6.5 maybe even. I like that the carb to fiber ratio is so high. There's 6 grams of fiber for the 17 carbohydrates, so that's almost a 3, that's pretty good. It's made of soy protein, and they added chicory root, which is a prebiotic fiber. If you're not someone who's sensitive to FODMAPs, I feel like this could be a good option for you. As far as taste goes, I don't know, I'm gonna give this guy like a 9 out of 10. I'm really into this one.
She's feeling it. Yeah, I would give this one a 5 out of 10 nutritionally. I do love majority of the ingredients. I think it's a little bit processed, but pretty much all these bars are gonna get a little bit of processing. And then taste-wise, I agree. I'm gonna say like 8.5 out of 10.
I thought this one was really good, and it's not too sweet. So I would rather a bar be a little bit on the less sweet side than to try to overcompensate with a lot of artificial tasting sweeteners, just because I feel like they leave a funny aftertaste, and the texture of this is just so much more satisfying to me. You get a little bit of crispy, crunchy, but then it has that very thin chocolate coating. So I'm gonna say flavor-wise, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I would buy this.
From the Master Palette.
Wow.
It's kind of like a scotcheroo. Do you know what scotcheroos are? They're like peanut butter Rice Krispie treats.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
but
kind of
like dark chocolate, not as sweet. Kind of dry. Still dry, but not like chalky.
So the next one we're gonna try is the RawRev Glo bar, and this is also chocolate peanut butter flavor.
This one looks like cookie dough.
It does.
Straight up.
And the chocolate chips are like melty. It looks...
I love a bit of salt with peanut butter. It's so necessary.
The texture is also nice. I like that there's like a few chia seeds in there, so you get that little pop, that little crunch.
And it's dense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel this would satiate me.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of like a homemade cookie or something. Italian dark chocolate chips. These are not your mama's dark chocolate chips.
So per bar, there's 19 grams of carb, 13 grams of fiber coming from those carbs. So this is like a 1.2. This one's high fiber, satiating. It doesn't even really say if it's added or not, which is interesting because as of January 2021, companies were mandated to kind of decipher and differentiate if it's added sugar versus natural sugar.
Honestly, the flavor for me just did it. I feel like I have like a flavor bias where when the flavor's really good, I'm like, oh, nutritionally, it's amazing.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say, honestly, this one's like an 8.5 nutritionally for me. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 flavor. I was a big fan of this bar. I personally like to eat organic, so had it been organic, that's my personal preference.
Okay.
Because of my own personal risk. If it was organic, I probably would have given it like a 10 out of 10 for me, but that's my own thing.
No, I'm gonna echo exactly what you said. I would give it an 8.5 or a 9 or so nutritionally, and same taste-wise. I thought this was amazing.
Yeah.
And I love all the different types of mostly whole foods protein they use. Like the superfood protein blend is like peanuts, pea protein, brown rice protein, hemp protein. I jive with this one.
For sure.
I really like this one too. Taste-wise, I really liked that. Again, it's not too sweet, but it has that bit of salt that really brings out the richness in the peanut butter and the chocolate. Anytime you're baking and you're using peanut butter and chocolate, I always think that little bit of salt gives like a buttery effect. And makes it taste more like a baked good.
I think I was watching one of your videos a long time ago, and you talked about how you put a little bit of salt in your oats to bring out the sweetness or the flavor or something.
Yeah, because we always think
true.
of salt as savory, but salt complements sweet, and just a little bit can really do a lot for the flavor and create like you feel like you're eating something a lot more rich than you actually are. So I always recommend that. If I'm being really picky, there's a slight, it's like there's still a little bit of a slight chalk to all of these, but I think in protein bars in general, that's kind of normal. But I think this is like, if I was to make my own at home, it would probably taste a lot like that, and it would have similar ingredients. So I think this is the best one I've had so far. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10.
As far as those with IBS and SIBO, because there is this isomalto-oligosaccharide, this would likely cause quite a bit of bloating if you are sensitive to FODMAPs. If you're not, I'm a big fan.
Go for it. All right, so we are trying our one and only vegan keto bar. This is the Good Lovin bar, peanut butter brownie flavor.
Oh, different.
Oh.
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh, I don't know, guys.
I feel tripped. I was like, peanuts! Oh, what is the rest of this?
What am I eating?
This is not good.
Grace?
I'm getting a very sugar alcohol-y taste, but the alcohol, emphasis on the alcohol, right?
You guys, I'm sweating and crying.
That's not a good reaction you want to a bar.
Sweating and crying.
Oh my gosh, she actually is crying.
I mean, that was like...
She's crying.
So for Grace, it's a no.
I'm setting up my vlog camera while we're doing this. Just
Not
because
like...
this is too good.
I can't stop.
I need this.
Wow, is it hot in here? Am I 36 weeks
I
pregnant?
Yeah, you're super pregnant. But this
Wait,
is bad.
she takes one bite and starts crying.
Did that not violate your palate?
That was the most. I don't
feel
think
like
I've
we
ever
got
had
catfished.
Oh, my winged eyeliner, you
It
guys.
was just...
Yeah, first we totally got catfish because this is very cute packaging. I love this color yellow. The bar looks very like there's texture. She has no chill.
Oh my god, I'm sweating.
I know, because
so much.
it was really, we should explain like why we're reacting this way. So here's what happens when you take a bite of this. It is immediately softer than any protein bar you've ever put in your mouth, and it almost goes into like a liquid right away, but then there's some chunks.
Stop it right now.
I'm sorry, but like, I don't know, it's unidentified nuts. I don't know what they are.
Oh my god.
There's a few different options, and you don't, it's not like, oh, clearly this is a peanut. I have no idea. It was like liquid
with crunch.
And then what you said about the sugar alcohol, it's very sugar alcohol-y in an artificial way, but then also extremely bitter, and it just, it like builds with intensity as it melts in your mouth.
I'm offended by
I'm
this bar.
so offended personally.
I feel so bad.
Religiously,
I feel assaulted.
politically, I'm assaulted. Goes immediately from a solid to a liquid.
A liquid instantly.
Instantly. Oh, that was so gnarly.
That's a
I
lot of
can't-
monk fruit flavor.
Wow.
It is. It's like artificial, sugary, but then very, very bitter.
Every
So it can get in the
orifice,
back of my
I know.
throat.
I literally just like took a swig. You're gonna see my chipmunk cheeks on your vlog camera. But I literally had to like swish it out of my face because
I know.
it's in every orifice of my
I'm
body.
still tasting it.
I'm still tasting it too. It's the gift that keeps giving. I don't know, guys. I'm sorry that I cried, but cheers to that.
I feel like people are gonna watch this and be like, how could it possibly evoke that kind of reaction? It did for all of
This
us.
was really bad.
Oh my gosh.
What flavor was that supposed to be?
This was telling us that it was peanut butter brownie. That's offensive to brownie.
I need to go cry.
Those are sharp words, I would say.
So I think that offensive flavor that we're tasting is all the monk fruit that's in it. They literally used chocolate chips that have monk fruit, and then they added more monk fruit because it didn't have enough monk fruit. Let's talk about nutrition facts.
I don't even care about the nutrition.
No, you guys, even
I
if
mean,
this is great for you, this tastes 0 grams of added sugar, but this is where they get you. Again, the law that passed doesn't say that they have to tell you how much sugar alcohol is in it. So it's like, oh, 0 grams of added sugar, this is gonna be so good. No, it's awful. And then get this, there are 9 grams of saturated fat. 45%
That's why
of the
it liquefies
recommended.
in your mouth. It's
Yes.
oil, yeah.
It has cocoa butter and organic coconut butter as well. So there's so much saturated fat in this.
Yes.
I would rate this maybe a 2 out of 10 because of all the saturated fat that's in it. And flavor-wise, -5.
A 1 out of 10 nutritionally. I mean, taste-wise, I can't even address the issue, really.
I'm giving this a 0, but the only reason I want to say
That's
more
so
than
nice
that,
of you.
I want to talk about coconut butter in a recipe. I feel like people sometimes gravitate towards coconut butter because it's like the whole coconut blended up versus like coconut oil, but it does impart such an intense flavor, and we are definitely tasting the monk fruit, but as soon as you said coconut butter and coconut and cocoa butter too, that's really what you're tasting. It's like body lotion with peanuts.
It's like they should sell it at Lush. Like it feels like a lotion bar.
It's exactly like one of those melty bars. It probably would be very restricting.
But for 45% of your saturated fat tokens, like, it's just no. Hashtag not worth
Eat the fries. Live
it. Eat
your
the
life.
fries. 10 out of 10. Eat the fries. Moving on from that train wreck. I don't know. Let's try this one.
Okay.
Honestly, we should go for whichever one we think is gonna taste really good because that was tough.
Honestly, I'm feeling this one.
Let's do
Let's
this
do that one. It looks
I need
the
a safe
most
bet.
chocolatey.
Yeah, I need a rock right now. Okay, so this is Nugo Dark Mocha Chocolate.
Yeah, this is the most unique of the flavors that we've had so far, and you do definitely get a good coffee flavor. Sometimes with mocha, it's more chocolatey, and I think this is like definitely a good mix of chocolate and coffee.
Agreed.
So I like the flavor.
And this is like a chocolate bar. Like the #1 ingredient is dark chocolate, and it just like cakes everything and permeates through the whole bar, which is really, really good. If you're going for like a dessert at night and you don't know whether to go for like a Ghirardelli brownie or this, like that's a great trade-off, but it is kind of a glorified candy bar, I will say.
Yeah, it's almost like you took a bunch of Rice Krispies and finely chopped nuts and tossed it together with melted chocolate and formed it into a bar. I've seen dessert recipes that do that, so if you didn't want to make your own, this would be a good option.
Yeah. I actually have a whole blog post on my website called The Skinny on Soy, and in that, because I know it's so nuanced with soy, there's soy protein isolate, soy flour, soy protein, and sometimes the ingredient labels can be like non-descriptive, and so this kind of teases apart each one of those so you can see what percentage of each of those is protein, how processed they all are. But as a rule of thumb, soy flour, if it just says soy protein or soy flour, oftentimes it is about 40% protein. And then if you get soy protein isolate, that's a 90% protein product. So it is more highly processed, but you're just kind of strictly getting that protein.
When we're eating soy, if we're eating edamame, if we're eating tofu, tempeh, so more whole forms of soy, you are not just getting protein, you're acquiring carbohydrates, you're acquiring some fat, you're acquiring other minerals. when you've dialed it in and you're only consuming soy protein isolate, as far as the gut goes, that can be a little bit overwhelming to your digestive tract because your body's not accustomed to solely digesting the protein of the soy. So not my favorite.
I would say to people, whatever aspect of the whole food is missing, your body's going to miss. So if they're taking out the fat and if they're defatting soy flakes and removing the starch from that, your body's going to crave that going forward or in the subsequent meal thereafter. So similar to the artificial sweetener business, your body will oftentimes compensate for what's missing.
Nutritionally, I would give this bar a 1. As far as flavor goes, because it's kind of a dessert, I'd give it like a 7 out of 10 probably.
Yeah, I'd give it like a 2 or 3 nutritionally, and probably similarly like a 7 or so out of 10. It did have kind of like a sugar alcohol-y taste, so not super into that.
I don't think it's quite sweet enough to be a dessert. Like if I really wanted a dessert, I think I would just rather have a cookie or something. Do you know what I mean? But if I was out and needed something quick and I saw this as an option, I would buy it. I really liked the flavor. So I would give it a 7 out of 10.
This is by Genuine Health, and it's fermented vegan proteins plus gut support. Dahlia, this is a heyday. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts.
It looks different than all of the other ones. It definitely,
it's hard.
And it has the very powdery consistency.
Totally.
Cheers.
I mean, no.
I was just in my own.
I can't even finish the whole
I'm
bite.
sad I got the big piece.
If you play this back, you're just gonna see me like this. What's that stuff you put in the bottom of a hamster cage?
Oh,
You know?
oh, little bark chips.
That's the texture.
It's drying. It's drying.
It's pulling moisture out
My
of
jaw
it.
hurts from chewing so much.
It's so powdery that you don't really taste anything, and then it dissolves, and you're like, what? Did I eat?
They use a lot of different types of mostly whole foods protein. The first ingredient isn't sugar in this bar. It's a protein blend of fermented pea protein, sesame protein, hemp protein, quinoa sprouts, alfalfa. It's dreamy, truly. It does have spirulina in it, which is a downside for me. So if you guys aren't familiar, spirulina is like one of those fancy algae that people like to drop into smoothies and things like that. The downside being that it grows in open water where a lot of other algae also can contaminate it that are known to be hepatotoxic, so really toxic to your liver, or neurotoxic, toxic to the brain or the aging of the brain. So spirulina is actually a downside for me. I don't know how you feel about that product, but
I think it has to be at quite high levels to have that hepatotoxicity, so for it to affect your liver, your brain. But if you are someone who's saying every single day, I make a smoothie with spirulina, you might want to look into it. You might want to find out more about the spirulina that you personally are using. If you're someone with autoimmune disease like lupus, also, one small study showed that it could kind of cause an immune hyperactivity. So spirulina might not be for you if that's the case.
like Dahlia said, quality is everything. So you can go on a website called consumerlabreports.com or consumerlabs.com, and you can find out where your supplements come from and the quality of that company. So every company is assessed, every product is assessed for potency, purity, and then whether it's organic, all kinds of things. So you can see, because spirulina, again, in a vacuum, very healthy. The way that it's grown oftentimes, and I'm sure some of the manufacturing processes, kind of sketchy.
After we have that protein, there's their trademark Vitafiber. So there's fermented prebiotic fiber. Again, if you're somebody with SIBO, IBS, gut issues, this actually would probably cause quite a bit of bloating for you. So I'm always checking out the first 5 ingredients when I'm buying something. And if I'm seeing refined sugars, if I'm seeing refined grains, I generally probably wouldn't buy this to have at home all the time. I always say the foods that you buy at the grocery store are being invited into your home like a roommate. And if you don't have a healthy relationship with added sugars or refined grains, you might not want to invite them into your home to consume on a regular basis or just be there in your face on a regular basis.
That's a good way to think about it, and that's really helpful for, I think, if you ever experience food fears. Like sometimes it's fun to learn about nutrition, but then it can also be a little bit overwhelming, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like everything is bad for me in some way or another, and it can just make you just not even want to think about it. But I think if you think of it like that, like how much of an effect is this really having on me? What is more beneficial, and focusing on what it offers. I think, at least from my perspective, I'm like, okay, I I need to remember that and not be so fearful of certain ingredients sometimes. Yeah.
And I always tell people, remember the context, because I have patients tell me like, I can't have salt, I can't have oil, I can't have sugar, and I'm like, remember the context of the person who's making that video. Who's their audience? Are they looking at cardiac patients? Are they looking at people going for extreme weight loss? Are they more gut focused? I'm more gut focused, so I come from that lens. So just because I've said something, if you don't have gut issues, disregard what I'm saying for the most part, right? I'm speaking from that lens, and that goes for anyone who you might be listening to or following.
And that's why I love interacting with other dietitians too, because my audience is primarily like eating disorder recovery, so I take a bit of a different lens than Dahlia, and it's good to have every perspective.
As far as nutrition goes, I would probably rate this bar maybe a 4. As far as taste goes, I'm gonna give this guy a 1.5. I don't know, I was confused by it.
I would say nutritionally, I would give it a 6. I do like the combination of mostly whole foods based proteins they use. Taste wise, 1 out of 10 from me.
I'm laughing because you guys are gonna think I'm crazy. I don't hate it.
Really?
You went back in for that.
You went back in.
Because I needed to, because I was like, texturally, I'm extremely confused. And then I went back and I was like, I should hate this because texturally it is quite dry. But do you guys ever eat things where you're like, this would not be good to most people, but for some reason it's fine to me? I wouldn't recommend this. You know, like I wouldn't.
But it grows on you.
But I kind of like it. I don't know if it's that I have a warm drink. I have coffee, and there's something about like I don't mind the texture, and the flavor is like kind of fine.
I like the variety of our answers there.
I would give it a 5, and I would not recommend it to anybody. It's not going to be my favorite thing I ate that day, but I would buy it.
Oh, you heard it here first. Okay.
She'd go on a second date, but she
Right.
would love
But
it.
don't take my word for
You
it.
would swipe right, but only for a second date. Let's see. This is the Garden of Light Fit Bar. One thing I don't love is that they do call it a weight loss bar. So for people that are more focused on having a healthy relationship to food, it can be a little bit triggering. But I personally think that they just say that because there is a high fiber content in it, and they're trying to spin that marketing angle. All right. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers.
Much more of a chew when you bite into it. It has a little bit more resistance than any of the others.
I'm tasting a weird flavor.
Me
and I can't
too.
put my finger on it.
Me too.
Okay, you know how sometimes you hear that there's an ingredient in something and then all of a sudden that's what you taste? There was something that I was tasting that I was like, this isn't s'mores, but like, it's definitely something I'm familiar with.
What is it?
Licorice. Do you taste that? I'm tasting like
I'm
black
getting an
licorice.
aftertaste now of licorice.
As far as nutrition label goes, there are 14 grams of protein, 26 grams of carb, 13 grams of the carbs are coming from fiber. So again, it's a 2. There are 0 grams of added sugar because they don't count those artificial sweeteners and stevia as sugar. I would probably give this maybe a 2.5. The nutrition label looks really good to me, but I'm not a fan of the ingredients. Flavor goes, I'd probably give it maybe I'd say a 5.
So I would say maybe like a 4 nutritionally, and this flavor I'm not a fan of. S'mores is not getting it done for me, but I do like their chocolate peanut butter flavor.
Yeah, I think actually this is the kind of chalky that I don't like in a protein bar. So even though this fermented one that we tried that you guys really didn't like, this one is very like dry and fibery and like almost like if you had like shredded wheat kind of dry versus like that is like chalky dry. And then it has that artificial sweetness. So that is like pretty much exactly what I don't like in a bar like this. I give it a 4.
I'm excited about this one. And you've tried this, right?
I'm a big fan of this brand, so I might have a bias, and I've tried it before.
Let's go for it. This is Bearded Brothers, and this flavor is Mega Maca Chocolate.
Ooh, this one's very different.
You can just tell it's more whole foodsy. Like I can taste fresh cinnamon and like dates or something in there.
Even though they say it's maca chocolate, to me it reminds me of Mexican hot chocolate, which I like because it has that cinnamon touch.
I wouldn't say it's chocolate, it's more like dates, nuts, cinnamon. I
It
like
does have Mexican cocoa in it.
Oh,
Like,
cocoa,
like a cocoa cinnamon vanilla mixture.
Yeah, but you know how cocoa and chocolate have different...
You know a lot about cocoa and chocolate.
my palate is not as refined as yours. There are 23 grams of carb, 5 grams of fiber, so it's just under that 5. Nutritionally, I would probably give this a 7 out of 10. But again, this probably wouldn't satiate you. This would probably be, you'd want to eat something with this. Flavor-wise, I love this. I would give this a 10 out of 10. This is right along my palate and what my palate enjoys.
Yeah, I love the flavor. I would say nutritionally, I would give this like an 8 or 9 out of 10 actually. I think that even though it only has 5 grams of protein only, compared to all these other ones that are like infused with protein powder, I like that this isn't trying to be something that it's not.
Totally.
And then of course the flavor is really good. It tastes like a homemade Lara bar. I mean, not to compare it to another competitor, but it tastes like a homemade Lara bar or like an energy bite. I would give the flavor like an 8 or so out of 10.
When I look at ingredients, I like to eat as whole food as possible, especially when I'm on the go. And so this is the one that I would gravitate to because of the ingredients. It's something that I'm familiar with all these ingredients. I have these in my kitchen, so it makes me feel really good about eating something like this, and I think it tastes really good. I would have this in my lunchbox, like with a sandwich and a piece of fruit or something with it, because it's definitely not like, I wouldn't even remember that I ate that if that was like my snack, you know?
Right.
It's not satiating, but it's good. I like it.
And I do love that they're marketing, they're not trying to take the diety angle, like weight loss angle. It's just this low glycemic and good source of fiber. I love that. So let's try this GoMacro bar. Obviously these are everywhere. I feel like they're having a real heyday with influencers right now because I'm seeing this all over my feed. And I also used to have this almost every day when I worked in the hospital. It was like one of the only protein bars they offered there. This one is, it's kind of stuck, sorry. Dark chocolate and almonds flavor.
It has a nice almond butter profile. If you love almond butter, you'll like it.
One interesting thing to mention about this bar is the first ingredient is brown rice syrup, which sounds like a really healthy sweetener. And I don't mean to demonize any sweeteners because again, I think relationship to sweetener is more important than like the quality of any individual one. But there is this really interesting study where they analyzed the health profile of 10 different sweeteners to look at like antioxidant level and fiber and minerals. And brown rice syrup was actually the least healthy of all the sweeteners, including white cane sugar and corn syrup.
Wow.
Like the lowest level of antioxidants and the most negligible amount of minerals and added nutrients.
Totally. Interesting.
It's interesting with added sugars because I often am asked by my patients, like, what about syrups? That sounds more natural. And I always say, you know, even with agave syrup or maple syrup, there's still process that goes into them. You know, you're not eating the agave leaf, you're not eating maple tree bark. So there are certainly things that are being stripped away. Not that we go into using sweeteners or consuming sweeteners with the intention of thinking, oh, it's a health food. But I think sometimes they're almost marketed that way. Like maple syrup right now, I think is really big. And I oftentimes get the people who come to me and they're like, oh, well, I eat maple syrup, it's good for you. And I'm like, well, you know, it's okay to have it, but it's not, I think, a health food.
I love maple syrup, so take this, like, yeah, I'm a true fan, taste-wise, love it. I devour it daily. But I also don't think of it as a health food. And there's a cafe in San Diego that they sell these like big vegan muffins and they say no sugar, like sugar-free vegan muffin. And one day I was curious because I wanted to make sure there wasn't like sucralose or something in it. I was like, what do you guys use if there's no sugar in it? And they're like, oh, we use maple syrup. And I was like, oh my, can't believe they're labeling this as sugar-free. Like it's really interesting. We all have our foods that like aren't a health food by any means, but that we incorporate regularly. I'm happy to eat it if there's maple syrup in it, but like just tell me that's sugar and it's in there.
As a informed consumer. As far as nutrition goes, I honestly would give this bar maybe a 3 out of 10. As far as flavor goes, it was okay. Maybe a 5 out of 10 for me.
I'm gonna stick with the 3 out of 10 nutritionally, and taste-wise, I would give it like a 6.
I used to eat these a lot when I was working in restaurants, and I would have a 6 to 8 hour shift on my feet, and we didn't really have a lot of time to eat. And so this was something that was actually satiating for me, and I felt like I could keep my energy levels up. So I used to eat a lot of these. That's not my favorite flavor. My favorite flavors that I've had are the peanut butter one. There's like a crunchy peanut butter and a blueberry I really like. But this one, you don't really get a lot of flavor right away. And it takes a while, and then it's just like almond buttery with a little chocolate. And so I would say I give it like a 4 out of 10.
So this one is the Clif Builders bar, which I'm sure we've all seen, pretty common. Obviously Clif bars are everywhere, but this one is denser. So it has more protein, more calories. It's just for like the more active Clif bar consumer. And this flavor is chocolate mint. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love the taste of this bar, but like as a candy bar.
If you like mint chocolate chip ice cream, you'll like the flavor of this. That's exactly what you got.
Ingredient number 1, soy protein isolate. So again, they're going for those builders looking to build.
Yeah.
So there is high protein in this, but maybe not the best quality. Cane syrup, cane sugar, brown rice syrup, palm kernel oil. So in the first ingredients, we have highly processed protein, highly processed refined sugars, and a highly processed oil which has saturated fat. Even if someone is a bodybuilder and they're looking to get in more protein into their diet, I still wouldn't recommend this product. As far as nutrition goes, I'm gonna give this a 1. Flavor, pretty good. I'd probably give it maybe a 6.
I'm watching Love Island right now, and there's a lot of hot people, but their personalities are so bad. And I feel like this just reminds me of Love Island cast. Like, it's so tempting, it's so delicious, but just not gonna do good things for your insides.
I love you. Just full stop. Okay, on the protein bar spectrum, I give this an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's really good, and it has a like mint chocolate chip ice cream flavor with some like crumbled up chocolate protein bar, if you can imagine that. So flavor wise, it's good, but based on what they've said, I would rather just have chocolate bars.
Yeah.
Or
a bowl of mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yes. Yeah.
This is lemon matcha flavor, which sounds really sexy. I'm very excited. Cheers. Oh, it's a keto bar. I'm surprised we let another one of those back into my life.
Are we in ketosis right now?
You definitely get lemon, but this has the most interesting texture, I think, because you bite into it and it almost like it's almost like a bunch of little crumbly bits of cookie that like immediately kind of break apart in your mouth, if you can imagine that texture. And then it's like dry and not sweet and lemony.
So the first 3 ingredients are almonds, chicory root fiber, and cocoa butter, and that's exactly what it tastes like you're eating. It has lemon oil too. It's not even like a zest. It's like oil. This also has matcha in it, which we all know matcha is super healthy for, you know, antioxidant content, catechins, anti-cancer compounds, all of that. However, this doesn't mention whether it's whole matcha leaf powder, like the whole leaf ground up, which is really healthy. That's what you would make like a matcha latte with, and probably what you would buy when you get like ceremonial matcha powder at the store. But it doesn't say whether it's that or matcha extract. And what we know about green tea extract is that there are some studies that link it to liver injury when consumed on a daily basis. So it's just important to know that distinction between, are you getting a green tea matcha extract or a whole matcha leaf powder.
This made me say dang in a bad way. Like, dang, I'm sad I ate that. Nutrition-wise, I would rate this a 2. Flavor-wise, a 1. That was not pleasant for me. I would never want to eat this again.
I similarly will be throwing up the deuces for flavor and nutrition. I did not like this, and I just feel like it's a bite of food I will never get back. With my limited stomach space at 36 and a half weeks pregnant, it's a bite of food I'll never get back.
Yeah, no.
All right, you guys, one more bar left. We have the cashew fig carrot bar from Thunderbird. So at least we're getting a different flavor on this one.
This one looks good, and it looks kind of Lara bar-ish.
Yeah. It's very like dried fruity. Like I can taste like figs.
It reminds me of like, Fig Newton.
That's really figgy.
I love this.
You can't taste the carrots either, for better or worse. You just taste like, to me, it tastes like figs with like the occasional nut.
It has 6 ingredients, and it's almost like the inside of a Fig Newton, and it has that little figgy texture, which I really like, those little, that little bit of crunch. But it has dates as the first ingredient, so it's like an even sweeter fig. So it's like a very intense dried fruit flavor. So if you don't like dried fruit, you wouldn't like this, but I'm addicted to dried fruit. I love it. And the sea salt and the vanilla really like enhance those dried fruit flavors as well.
So ingredients, like Nikki mentioned, dates, figs, cashews, carrots, vanilla extract, Himalayan pink salt, nutmeg. Super simple ingredients, but great. 23 grams of sugar, and I always get patients who pick up things like this and they're like, oh, that's way too much sugar. But again, 0 grams of added sugar. So how is that sugar going to affect your glucose response? And how is the fiber in relation to that? Nutrition-wise, I would say maybe a 3 out of 10. I don't know if I'm being fair. Maybe a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10 for nutrition. Flavor-wise, it's a 10 for me. Again, like Bearded Brothers, this is like my palate. This is what my palate likes. I like these flavors. I would eat this.
I like the flavor. I do wish that there were more nuts to, like the nut to dried fruit ratio was a little bit bigger, because to me it just tasted really jammy. Like you're just getting a lot of dates and figs, and I like a little bit more like cashews and almonds in there. So I'm gonna say nutrition-wise, I definitely don't hate it. There's only 6 ingredients. Like, how can you be mad at that? But if I was looking for it to be satiated, I wouldn't find that here. So I would say like a 3 or 4 actually. And then taste-wise, I'm gonna go with a 4 or so too. Not really my jam, pun intended, but
I would say if you're trying to decide between this, a Lara bar, and the Bearded Brothers, this is definitely sweeter and softer than the Bearded Brothers, but the flavor profile is similar. I think it's really good, but I love figs, so I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
So in closing, you guys, let's talk about what our number ones are for nutrition and tastes.
Well, I'd like to start by saying, even though we basically all kind of just ate a whole bar between all those 12 little pieces, I could still eat. Like, that was not satiating for me, which is why I don't recommend bars as meal replacements. You're gonna be hungry very shortly after. So again, I have so many who come to me and they're like, yeah, I eat protein bars very often. And I'm like, I'd rather eat food, and I'd rather you eat food. But my top pick was this Bearded Brothers. Again, it's not the highest protein content, so if you're looking to get them gains, this probably isn't the bar for you, but like the ingredients, love the nutrition facts, and like Grace said, I like that they're not parading it as something that it's not.
I'm gonna say my favorite overall was the RawRev Glo bar, especially because I don't know why when I picked this up, it gave me like weird vibes. I just haven't seen it very often, so it was really surprising that I liked it so much and that the ingredients actually I felt good about. This is my number one.
I really like that one. I like all of these. I would buy all of these. This one was my favorite because of the fact that it was just very sweet. If I want something that's kind of dessert-like and sweet, I would go for this one or that one. If I'm in the mood for something that's a little bit more like salty and savory, I feel like that would fill me up, and this would just be like a sweet treat that I would pick up if I saw it.
With all that in mind, I think a big takeaway from this video is that yes, protein bars can be a very quick and easy on-the-go option, some healthier than others, of course, but keep in mind if you're looking to get satiated, satiety is both fullness and emotional satisfaction. So this might satisfy you emotionally. It might satisfy those density receptors in your stomach that are looking for protein and calories and fat. But protein bars aren't gonna satisfy you in terms of fullness, another big aspect of satiety, right? And fullness comes from things like water and fiber, those fruits and veggies that help fill up our stomach. We wanna shoot for satiety, fullness, and emotional satisfaction, looking for those stretch and those density receptors to be satisfied. And this is only half of the equation in my opinion. So when I'm having a protein bar, I always like to pair it with some grapes, some melons, some veggies, or a full meal, or I'll have it after a meal to kind of just fill in the cracks as like a dessert alternative, again, because they are so sweet and delicious in a lot of cases. I hope you guys like this video. I will go ahead and leave these girls' links below, so be sure and check out their channels and their most recent videos. We might even be filming some other stuff today, so that might be fun to link down below as well. And I will catch you guys next time. Bye!